Okay, I'm going to, wow, people are just coming right on in. We got an excited crowd
I
tonight.
see that. Oh my
Robin, they
goodness.
are here and early and ready to get this started. I'm going to actually get us going live on Facebook too, because we promised everybody if they couldn't get in here, they could watch it over there. So welcome everyone as you're coming on in. Go ahead, you know the drill. Let us know where you're coming from and say hello. Oh, we got Oklahoma,
Canada,
California,
LA, Vancouver.
Killeen, Texas. I spent 6 years of my life in Killeen, Texas.
I have no idea where that is.
It is in the middle of nowhere. It's not far from, let's see. Oh my gosh, it's been so long. I lived there when I was 5, kindergarten through 5th grade, so little. So we weren't terribly far from, I guess, I don't know. Who's the person from Killeen? You tell us where the nearest big city is, because I don't remember. It's been a terribly long time.
Greer, South
Temple.
Carolina.
How could I not remember Temple? Greer. We got more South Carolina people.
I like my South Carolina people.
Robin spent how many years were you in South Carolina?
Oh my gosh, I grew up in Charleston. And then so my whole adult life until and then I was in Columbia, South Carolina for a number of years at the university. And then I moved back at the age of about 45 to take care of my mother who was getting old. And was there until about 2011 when I moved to Nashville.
All right. Well, I know it was a lot of fun when we made that University of South Carolina connection. And we've got Kathy Mice is here.
Oh, I love Kathy.
Okay, one of my team members just signed in on my account and you need to leave. Okay. I just hid your video, so I don't know if you're showing up there. Okay. All right. Well, it is 8:01. We gave just a couple minutes for everybody to get in here. And wow, Canada, we have people from all over the place. Good to see all of you all here. We made it, everybody. This is the kickoff session, the keynote session for the, well, I should wait to say we made it until Saturday evening, but we're starting the Women in Publishing Summit for March of 2022, year 5. This is our 5th anniversary. So we are so excited to have Robin Cutler here as our keynote speaker tonight. Robin, I will read her official bio in just a second, but I had the pleasure of meeting her when I went to Digital Book World in 2018. I was there helping Orna Ross with the Alliance of Independent Authors. We were trying to raise awareness for indie authors at these book events, and it was such a great event. But I had the opportunity to go out to dinner one night, and I don't even know if Robin remembers this, but it was Amy Collins, and I think Kathy Mice was with us, and
I think
Orna.
was there. Orna.
Yep. Annalisa Parrott was with us. We had just this great group of ladies and went out and had such a wonderful night together. And, you know, it's so cool. This is obviously a virtual conference, but you have the opportunity to get to know each other in our coffee chats and all of those, because making these kinds of relationships with other women in the industry, I know tremendous and moving forward, and just having other eyes and ears and perspective on what's happening in this big world of publishing. And that's part of what Robin's going to talk to us a lot about. What Robin's going to talk to us about tonight is the state of publishing, the challenges, the innovation, and what's to come. So she's been a force within the publishing industry throughout her entire career. She's spent time in transformative roles at USC Press, Amazon, Summer House Press, leading her to her position, creating and leading the development of Ingram Spark, which for the mouth of every indie author out there. Thank you for everything that brought to small publishers and to indie authors for sure. So after finishing her mission of building Ingram Spark into a publishing powerhouse, Robin joined Lmbpn Worldwide Publishing as president and became the CEO of howtopublishbooks.com, a consulting service for indie authors and publishers. In addition to all of these accomplishments, she served on the board of the Independent Book Publishers Association from 2014 to 2018, and she frequently appears at industry events. You may have heard her speak at Book Expo America, Frankfurt Book Fair, London Book Fair, SFWC, and NINC, for example. And now she is adding Women in Publishing Summit to that list. So her experience is long and extensive, and so much stuff across the publishing world. And I am so excited to have you here as our keynote. And thank you so much for taking your time out to do this.
Thank you so much, Alexa. I'm just really, really thrilled to be here. As I was telling you, I haven't done a presentation in over a year, so I'm a little bit rusty and a little bit nervous. But I know I'm with my friends here, so I hope this goes well. Should I share my screen now?
Yes, we'll do that. And just everyone, remember, you can use the Q&A box to drop any questions so that they don't get lost in the chat. And Robin is happy to answer those throughout the conference. So I'll be keeping an eye on the Q&A box. And if something relevant pops into the discussion, I'll make sure to ask that. Otherwise, we'll get to all of them at the end. So, all right. Here we go.
So I will preface this, and I do live in the mountains of New Mexico that doesn't have best internet. So if I go blank, I apologize for that. So just let me know, Alexa, and we'll figure out what to do about it.
All right, sounds good.
I will also tell you that in this presentation, I kind of put this together pretty quickly. I just wanted to kind of gloss over some high-level things. So I haven't gone into any real detail about Amazon, about Ingram Spark, and about Lmbpn, the publishing house that I work at now. So if anybody has any questions about any of those things, I'm happy to answer them afterwards. So I just wanted to kind of preface that. So here we are. We've been through a rough couple of years,
Robin,
I have to say. Yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I didn't know your slides aren't sharing yet.
Oh, they aren't. Let me go back
Nope.
and start do that over. Okay, let me get to the end here and see where I am. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right.
I told you I haven't done this in a while.
Hey, like you said, you are with friends. I just wanted to I wasn't sure if you were just chit-chatting with us before you started.
Okay, can you see that? Can you see them now?
So I think you're sharing on your computer, but you got to hit the share screen in Zoom.
Oh, in Zoom. Okay, let me start this over again. Okay, let me share.
Sorry, I messed you up. You had them all set up and beautiful before. I should have just left them.
and Zoom screws me up all the time.
Welcome to the world.
Yeah.
I wonder.
Okay, let me share this. Okay.
There we go.
Did that do it? I forgot that little button.
Yes, it is going now. All right, we're good.
Okay, here we go. So I think you heard what I said. So I wanted to start from where we were like pre-COVID or through COVID. The publishing industry as a whole, went through COVID really well. In fact, in a lot of cases, book sales actually grew. But during that time, we had to suffer a lot of bookstore shutdowns and just kind of adapt to how things moved online, especially with online learning, with, parents having to school their children at home. And then, online bookstore purchases, just moved completely online. And and so, that's been quite a shift, and that's continued on, to today, 2 years later, now that we're hopefully post-COVID. I hope a lot of the participants made it through COVID without too much trouble. I know that some people are still getting COVID, even with vaccinations and boosters. And so I wish everybody the best. I made it through without, and everybody in my family made it through, knock on wood. So my heart goes out to those who weren't as fortunate. So I just wanted to say that. So the reading, people still, preferred reading print books, especially during COVID. It was kind of interesting because print had been sort of declining for a few years before that. And what happened with COVID and people, moving to doing a lot of online business, they didn't really want to read online particularly. But they did want to read print books, and they also wanted to listen to audio, which grew quite a bit. And so, if you were a publisher that had your book set up in print and had an audio book available, you probably noticed that your books did just fine. Self-publishing, I know a lot of people on this in this webinar are self-publishers. That trend definitely escalated during the COVID years and continues to be on the rise. And then social media just kind of blew up, especially TikTok, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But this is the way these 3 years kind of looked in terms of what was selling. Overall, the publishing industry contributes about 24 to 26 billion dollars a year as an industry, and that continued through COVID. At the time, I was working at Ingram Spark and at Ingram, and we never shut down, a way a lot of the businesses did. And in fact, in a lot of ways, it helped our business, especially with audio and with print. So I've got this broken down by 2020, 2021, and then where we are so far in 2022. And you can see ebooks sort of did decline in 2020 and also in 2021, but they're on a rise again now. In fact, everything's on a rise again in the beginning of 2022, which is really great. You can see underneath each of those years, in terms of genre, what was really doing well. And you can see that it changed from year to year, which is kind of interesting. It was like the beginning in 2020, romance, which is usually, one of the top genres, did not do that well. I guess people weren't in a romantic sort of mood. But children's books, because a lot of the parents were buying books for their kids at home because they were all being homeschooled. So children's books did really well. Right now, literature and fiction in 2022 is really up. Romance is back. Mystery and thrillers, sci-fi and fantasy, and surprisingly enough, children's is now a little bit lower in 2022. So the other big thing that happened during COVID was just, social media has just been big for years, but it really blew up during COVID. Facebook, a lot of author groups, probably including this one, found a lot of authors, during the last couple of years. And there's just thousands now of author groups that you can find. You can definitely find your tribe on Facebook. Instagram blew up. There's a hashtag bookstagrammer that's been really popular, especially among young readers now are posting video there. They're doing millions of posts. YouTube now has a hashtag of booktubers. The largest booktuber there that's posting videos about the books that they're reading and recommending books, has, hundreds of thousands of followers. And then TikTok has completely blown up. The hashtag book talk, has had 36 billion views, and that's one of the most popular places now, especially for young readers, where they hang out. Not so much about publishers. It's mainly authors and readers, recommending and talking about books that they really like. And that's just a fantastic thing to see, that kind of engagement. Oh, wrong way. There we go. So there's been, like I said before, a little bit of shift in consumer preferences related to books. Print is still today even the dominant format, but ebooks are rising up again, and audiobooks are particularly growing just by leaps and bounds. I have found in my own personal sort of book consumption, I am probably doing more audiobooks than anything anymore. And partly because audiobook quality has really grown. A lot of really popular books now are read by famous actors. I just listened to Agatha Christie's Death on the Nile. I'd never read that book. And with the movie coming out, I kind of wanted to get up to speed on it. And so I listened to the audiobook, and it was read by Kenneth Branagh. And it was just such a fabulous experience that, I just don't think I'll ever put down audiobooks again. And what I love about audiobooks is that you can do, you can multitask. Often when I'm walking or I'm out in my garden, I'll have an audiobook on. So, and I am a diehard like print reader, and I am not, to be honest with you, I'm not buying as many print books. I'm definitely listening to more audiobooks. The sad thing about COVID is we have seen indie bookstores, especially independent bookstores, closing, but there's been a rise of some more online retailers. One particular that your participants may be familiar with is bookshop.com, which basically really came alive right at the beginning of COVID. They had launched maybe a few months before COVID, and then when COVID hit and so many bookstores closed up, the great thing about Bookshop is that they actually, some of the sales go into a pot that help independent bookstores. And it's been a great resource for independent bookstores during these last 2 years. I think everything's open now. So hopefully, there'll be the stores will come back. The ones that closed are probably gone for good. And of course, Amazon, is by far the dominant retailer. I don't see that changing anytime soon. If you're a publisher, if you're an author, you definitely need to be in Amazon. And we're seeing a lot at Lmbpn, that's where we're selling most of our books. So I would assume that's true for most of you on this call. So currently, where we are is self-publishers still continue to dominate as a segment of the publishing industry. So and that's really escalated during COVID. I guess people have more time to write. And so, because of that, and so many platforms like Ingram Spark that make that easy to self-publish, and Kindle, the two biggest ones, that there's just doesn't seem to be any way that's ever going to stop. And I think that's a great trend. And, I'd hate to see, and the other great thing about self-publishers as a industry segment is that, and I know a lot of people on this call, you may start out self-publishing your own book, but you grow as a publisher, you learn the business, and before long, you become an independent publisher. You're publishing other people's works, and that's a trend that's also very much still rising. The big five traditional publishers, looks like may become the big four. Penguin Random House is wanting to acquire Simon & Schuster. The Biden administration is looking into that. Whether or not that goes through, who knows? I suspect it will. But that's a big current trend. And currently the big five account for about 70–80% of all books sold still. So traditional publishing is still alive and well. If you can get, as an author, if you can get a traditional publishing deal, even if you're a self-publisher, that is absolutely the way to go. And I wouldn't discourage that, because you would have a machine behind, distributing your book and selling your book. Like I said before, the indie pubs that are rising up out of self-publishers. And currently I work for an independent publisher. Lmbpn is an independent publisher that has grown multiple digits year over year since they've been in business for the last 5 years. So that's a great trend as well. One of the other trends that isn't so great is the lack of diversity in the traditional publishing industry that's been in place for the last 50 years, I would say, where it's basically been a white sort of straight, mainly male sort of dominated industry. That is changing. A lot of women, thank goodness for this group, are now rising up like me, in the industry, and are now pretty well represented. But in terms of authors and publishers of color, LGBTQ members of our society are still not as represented as they should be. So there's been a trend now, especially in the publishing houses, indie publishing houses in particular, to sort of correct the diversity that's needed in this industry. So I'm really happy to see that. And if you're a diverse author, or if you're even a white author, writing, and creating characters that are diverse is really needed. So, just keep that in mind. Digital marketing is now like all there is, basically. Traditional marketing has kind of gone away. Online ads through the social media sites, through the storefronts, is where people are marketing their books now. Email marketing is still important, that you have email lists that you're maintaining and growing. And then, writing blogs, participating in other blogs and podcasts, that sort of thing is just really, really important to get the word out and to market your book. AI is something that, has probably a negative connotation in terms of the creation of books. But I know a lot of publishers are starting to think about that, and how can you use AI to actually create books. I know a couple of publishers, especially in nonfiction, that are using AI to determine, if there's a need for a book on a certain topic, and then to gather information, through artificial intelligence about certain topics to actually create books. I don't see it so much in the fiction world, but I definitely see it in the nonfiction world now. And then in AI, in terms of creating audiobooks, there's a lot of buzz now about artificial intelligence in terms of creating, the audiobook. We've tested it a little bit. I've tested it. I've never found anything that, comes close to the human voice, especially in fiction. Especially in dramatic fiction, that that compares with the human voice. And I think that's going to be true for a while. But I can tell you that a lot of the big players, Amazon, Google, even Netflix, they're all like looking at AI in terms of video and audio. So that's something to keep our eyes out for. And then, everybody wants to sell direct, to their own readers, to their own listeners, to their own consumers. And so there's more and more of that and more ways to do that. Even in Bookshop, you have the ability in Bookshop to create your own storefront, sell your books, create your own, curate your own list, and then sell direct. The same with Shopify. I know a lot of authors are selling from their own website and then making that website connected to Shopify to be able to do the e-commerce. So there's just a ton of opportunity out there now for publishers to sell direct. And what's great about that is you manage that customer. When you sell your books on Amazon, and when you point your readers and your customers to purchase your books to Amazon, it's a great fulfillment opportunity, but you've lost, the connection with that consumer. You've lost that relationship. And so as much as you can sell direct and maintain and support that relationship, the better for you as a business. So here in the near future, and I mean sort of right now, and you're all aware of this because probably in your own daily lives, you're spending a lot more time on social, you're spending a lot more time on streaming services, watching, different content. You may be gaming, you may be gambling, you may be listening to podcasts. So all of these things now that are all over us and so available to all of us, really rich content now in various formats. This is where we are as book publishers in this same bucket where all this other stuff is going on. So, in the near future, right now, you have to fight for the attention away from all of these different services to get the attention of a reader or listener. And the wars are going on, and you see it, with Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, all of that. There's just tons of content. My daughter, especially, not so much my age, I think, consumer, but definitely my daughter who's 26. I mean, she lives on social media. And, she's been pulling me kind of reluctantly, to get interested in TikTok. She's always sending me videos of cats on YouTube or whatever. I don't know how she has this much time to really keep up with all these things that are out there on social, but she does. And so does everybody her age. So, it's just part of, our culture now. The streaming video services, Prime Video, Hulu, Netflix, Disney. I mean, it's just a long list of all these service providers that are out there with really great content. And, I'm as guilty as anybody, of watching this video content and just getting hooked in and just our whole families. I just finished watching, I think it was season 1 and 2 of Succession, and I'm just so hooked. I watch gardening shows, I watch cooking shows. I mean, that's a lot of time, that's spent in these streaming services. And I'm kind of glad that winter is coming to an end so that, I can put my turn my television off and get outside again. The newest thing, I think, is cloud-based gaming and gambling. If you watch the Super Bowl, and actually now you see just all these ads on gambling, these sports gambling sites. this is a little bit disturbing to me, to be honest with you, but it's here and it's in our faces and it's getting the attention of a lot of consumers. And then podcasting, now there's like 2 million podcasts now. And I love podcasts. One of my favorites is and there's a lot of author podcasts that are really quite good. And I learn a lot. I just recently bought a podcast that was an interview, and I can't remember the guy's name. It just went blank, with Paul Simon. And, it was an interview with him about his creativity. It was a 4-hour podcast. And it was just really, really wonderful. So, it's just all this enriched material out there that's really, you've got to fight as a publisher to kind of get the attention of your audience. So that's the bad news. So what are you supposed to do? What do you do? So the great thing about now the rise of all these social sites and these different streaming sites is I think there's an opportunity for promotion. Most of them offer advertising. I don't see a lot of books in a lot of these places now, and I think there's an opportunity to actually promote books on some of these sites that are fairly new. So that's something to think about. As a publisher, you need to think really broadly about the content that you're either publishing for another author, or if it's your own content, to think about your content as your intellectual property, and that, it has what you've created has a long and a varied life. And think about, the different formats that content can live in. And think about the rights, learn about, how you partner with other companies that can take your intellectual property to the next level. And think about your content as you're creating it or as you're acquiring it, that it has a broad life. It's just not, a one book deal. It is a book that, has a long life, and that, you can do a lot with it. Think about your audience now, not just as readers, but also as listeners, as viewers, and participants. And what I mean about participants is, you need to be reaching out, finding your audience, as you are creating your content. At Lmbpn, we have, varied list of our readers that we're engaged with as we're actually creating the content. And, that just helps your audience, become a part of what you're doing. In fiction, if you're writing fiction, I think that you have to think about your work as a series and as serial content. I know that now that I'm back as a publisher, I'm not really that interested in a one-off book. I don't really care how well it's written. What I'm more interested in is an author with a series. If you have a world that you spun off, and other spin-off possibilities into your fictional world, that's the best of both worlds. Specifically, I'm looking for authors that have at least 4 books in a series, and even more than that is even better. Like 8 is kind of a perfect number. So just think about that in terms of what you're writing and what you're acquiring. And like I said before, make sure that when you're publishing, that you're making your books available in as multiple formats as you can afford to. And what I mean by that is if you've first published your book as an ebook, make sure that book is selling, and then make it available as a print book. And if that print and ebook start selling, an audiobook is fairly expensive to produce. Make sure that your ebook and print sales can, supplement the audiobook. And so that's just kind of really important. If you can afford and you know your audience and, out the gate, you're doing well, publish your book in as many formats as you can. And then you should have a website, and you should also have a way to be attracting, your audience to your website so that you can add them to your email list. That email list is really very valuable. That's still the number one way to market your book is to your email list. Make sure you're maintaining and building your website and your email list, that you're not just letting it sit there. And then be creative. Think about yourself. Is there a game that you can spin out of your content? Definitely, can you start a podcast? That's a great way to engage and be creative with your audience. And it's all out there, and it's fairly inexpensive to do that today. So the other thing is just be prepared. This is something I just heard about, and it's been since the Russian-Ukrainian thing over this last week, where I was listening, I think, to a podcast, and somebody was saying, what would you do if, all of our tech just kind of crashed? And boy, that made me sit up. What would you do? And this person went on to say, your laptop could be compromised. If all your work's just on your laptop, you need to make sure that you backed up. If it's backed up to the cloud can crash. Make sure that you have your work backed up offline, even in a printed format. That's really, really important. And if you don't take away anything else from this webinar, I would say that's probably the number one thing to do tomorrow, is make sure that you've got your work backed up in a offline format. Stay current with what's selling. Make sure that you're, talking with other authors, checking in, reading, following the publishing news. That's just really, really important. It's important to grow as a writer. You get better with every book. You become a better writer. And it's just really important to get better as a writer. Your first book, I work with authors all the time now, and, they're on to their 20th or 30th book. And, when you go back and look at their early work, they're even embarrassed by it. They've gotten so much better. So that's just important to hone your craft. There's nothing still that beats a well-written story. We are a world of storytellers. People love storytellers, and that's what we all are here. A good, original, well-written story still wins the day. So, as original as possible, that is what I always advocate. If you're writing fiction, make sure you got hooks in there and cliffhangers and things like that. That really matters. That's just, and a good story when you read it. So, just do your work there. Be positive, and especially offer help to your fellow sisters, like here. Always be entertaining and respectful to your audience. It's just, part of what you have to do, and part of what you should be doing and want to be doing. And then be part of a tribe like Women in Publishing. And that's why you're here. So, and that's why I'm here too. So, so that's it for me here with the presentation. I'd love to talk to you if you have any questions. Feel free.
Oh my goodness, do you have questions?
Oh, do I? know?
It was a little slow on the questions, and then you started talking about series, and that kicked up a whole bunch of questions.
Oh.
Here. I'm going to actually hit that one first, because there were multiple questions that came around this. Several people wanted to know around this idea of, if you are, as a publisher, are interested in authors who have series of 8+ installments, do you mean that you want to jump in at number 9 to publish the whole thing? Someone else said, if someone's got the 5th book and they've already self-published 4, would you pick that up? Or are you talking about when an author comes to you Are you looking at picking someone up with an original series unpublished or both?
I personally like something that's been self-published and it's ready to go. Lmbpn has rapid release schedules. So, we as soon as we, get through the editorial process and the book cover design process, we're ready to start publishing. And we publish probably a book in a series, every month. Or we would continue the series month by month. So we have picked up previously published books, and we're not averse to that either. And I think most independent publishers are like that.
And that leads me to another question that was posted in here is, what is the difference between a traditional publisher and an independent publisher?
So the traditional publishers are usually the big five that are in New York publishing, where you have to have an agent to be able to approach them. It's hard to get an agent. It's hard to get these big publishing deals. A traditional publisher will typically pay you an advance when they purchase your book, and then pay you a royalty. Most independent publishers, if they do pay you in advance, it's probably a small one. They typically will have a greater share of the royalty with you. It varies from publisher to publisher, but independent publishers are there's more of them. They're easier to find, and I think you have a better chance to get picked up by an independent publisher.
Perfect. Okay, I'm going to pop back up to the top here. Okay, so I was told by Kelly wants to know, I was told by an industry professional that Amazon is the #1 book distributor in the world right now. Would you agree with that statement?
Amazon is technically not a distributor, they're a retailer. So a distributor is like Ingram. Ingram is the world's largest technically wholesaler distributor of books. So distributors are selling to retailers and to libraries typically, who are then selling to consumers. So that's what a distributor is. Amazon is a retailer that sells direct to a consumer. They are the world's largest online retailer.
Perfect.
So they're selling more than books. They're selling, and everybody knows that, right?
Yeah. Yeah, aren't they? Okay, aside from the traditional digital marketing methods, what's the most creative method of marketing audiobooks that you have seen? What's the most creative method of marketing audiobooks?
I've seen people take audio chapters and put them in or have them on a podcast or have them on their website, kind of like a teaser. I've seen that a lot. Where that works. A lot of people, it's hard to do them really well now because it's expensive. And when you sign up with Audible or you sign up with some of these other audio producers, you sign up for a lengthy period, about 7 years, where you are, you've sold your rights or you licensed your rights to them. So I find audio just kind of a hard thing to crack right now as a small independent author or publisher. I know people do it. I know they spend a lot of money, but they're really hard to sell.
Yeah, we were talking to an audiobook distributor a couple years ago, and her advice is always if you have the money to do it, by all means, go for it. But if you're on a budget and you're really trying to make decisions, she said her best advice to see how your audiobook would be is based on your ebook sales. If you're selling lots of books, there's a good chance that you'll be selling audiobooks too. So But yeah, I agree. It's hard to market those. I think libraries is the best place to market audiobooks too, because I think so many people, I know I get almost all my audiobooks from either Hoopla or
Hoopla or Overdrive. Yeah.
exactly.
But you're not paying for those, right?
No,
As the listener,
exactly.
it's phenomenal. So I always think, well, how's anybody making money on this, right? So so if and then it's hard to get as an indie author. It's hard to get your book into Hoopla or Overdrive, right?
True. That
Yeah.
is very true. Um, Tamian, sorry, wants to know, how do the folks that are selling for themselves handle distribution? Are they having to carry inventory?
So I never advocate anybody do inventory unless your book, it just doesn't lend itself to print on demand. It's just not worth it, I don't think. Because, and what happens, and I don't know how many people I've talked to that, especially children's book authors, they will have printed, they worry about the unit cost. They want to get their unit costs really low. So they print 5,000 copies in China. Now it would take you forever to get them, right? So I wouldn't advocate that at all. But then you get those books. Ingram, which is the world's largest distributor, they're not going to stock your inventory. You're only going to do a print on demand book anyway. So I don't think I never advocate for somebody to do to inventory unless that book is sold more than, I would say, 2,000 copies. And then and it's selling well and it's in distribution already. And then you can sort of plug in and sell that yourself directly off your site.
All right. On that note, with the pricing and well, that just reminded me of paper. Kathy Mice wants to know, what are your thoughts about the increasing price of paper? Because it's tremendously eating into everyone's margins right now.
I know. I had to go back into an Ingram Spark account this week and up my pricing because they went up on their print pricing. I know it's terrible. I don't know what to say, except, if everybody's raising their prices, then, at some point consumers get used to a higher price. I hate to say it like that, but that's the truth of it.
Right. And it's probably not going to go back down again, I would guess. I mean, you get used to paying that price and who's going to lower their.
Yeah.
Let's see. Renee wants to know, due to the great need for diversity, are publishers creating avenues for authors of color to enter into the industry?
Yeah, I think so. And, especially, for instance, we've, not me personally and not the company I work for, but I know that that if you are licensing your audio books, a lot of the audio publishers, want diverse content. So, you as a publisher should be looking for, African American, especially African American authors. And I know that we at my company have done that. So, and I'm always delighted, when I find a person of color that is also a really great author, and I'm ready to snap them up. So anybody that's like that, please let me know. And, I would love to see your work.
Well, that is, I'm sure the next question everyone's thinking is, what type of books do you publish, Robin?
So we only publish genre fiction. So so that's something to think about. Mainly urban fantasy, sci-fi, a little bit, we're starting to get into thrillers. I would love to do romance. If I had a really great romance series, I would definitely consider it. But they haven't done that up to this point. But those are tried and true different genres. Paranormal, all kinds of, there's all kind of spinoffs, with we have an urban druid series, we've got all kinds of witches and, different makes and models of, different creatures that we like. So
And those all lend themselves to series, so it goes really well with that desire too. And
Yeah.
speaking of, there's one more question about the series by Caitlin, from Caitlin. She wanted to ask, um, in your opinion, is it better to pitch a longer series, 5+ books, to an indie publisher as opposed to a traditional publisher?
Well, here's what I say about traditional. I think everybody should try to get an agent, try to get somebody interested in your work that's pitching your work to traditional publishers, New York publishers. But give yourself a period of time that you're willing to be rejected, and then start ferreting out, indie publishers that might be interested in your work. You got to do the research. Don't come to, I just told you I'm interested in urban fantasy and sci-fi, and not so much interested, although if you have a good romance, I probably would be interested, but make sure you're lining up your work with a publisher that is already publishing that type of work. So do some research on that.
Good to know. Okay, so that one is done. Let's see here. I think I'm gonna skip this one, Allison, not because I don't want you to read your question, but I don't know that Robin wants to get into talking about producing an audiobook. Do you? She asked for suggestions on ways to produce an audiobook that's probably better for someone who is an audiobook producer to
It's
answer.
really hard to do it. You have to go professional. You have to. It's so hard to do.
I agree. Having tried to do my own, no, it was worth it to pay someone else to hire an actor, have them
Find a
record.
way. Find a way is really good. As
Find
far
a
as
way.
Find a way audio is a good production company. And then, ACX is the number one on, with Amazon.
All right, let's see. Okay, so Jean wants to know, she thought you might, I think this must have been when we were talking about marketing. She thought maybe you'd mentioned Goodreads. Is that pulled into the Amazon umbrella?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, okay. I'm finishing my first book. I plan to write 2 more, contemporary romance. Should I wait to query agents until I've finished the series?
I think so. I really do. I think they're going to be more interested if they see, the breadth of your work. I don't think anybody anymore is interested in just a one book author.
Yeah, it's so hard to recoup the cost of publishing with just one book.
Yeah. And and then my publishing house that I work for now, and we publish so rapidly, I find that, some authors just can't meet that kind of schedule. So it's almost better that you've already done the work, and then we know we can drop your work in, and everybody's kind of happy. But spend the time, don't rush it. I'm sure you preach this, don't rush it. It takes time. This is hard. To be a writer, to be an author is so hard. That's why most people don't do it. They can't do it. That's why everybody's sitting around streaming videos like Succession. It's just really a hard thing, but it's also something that everybody has a goal, like it's a bucket list. It's a human bucket list thing to write a book.
All righty. Oh my gosh, there's so many questions. I was trying to go through and see if there were any that could be kind of combined. Here's an easy one. How many books a year does Lmbpn publish?
We publish about 350 to 400 books a year. We're one of those fastest growing publishers in the US.
I don't know if you can answer. Actually, I'm just going to go to this one. This is a great question. What about serializing your book? Any thoughts on that?
I know a lot of authors have had a lot of success on Wattpad, but it's a younger audience, a younger readership there. So if you're writing YA, I think that's a good place to try. Where you post your work as you're writing it. And it's huge. They've got, millions and millions of readers on Wattpad.
Okay. I'm getting a lot of questions about the new Kindle Vella. Do you know much about Kindle Vella,
Not
Robin?
really. I've read a little bit about it. That's the serialized part. I know they launched it just a few months ago. I don't think anybody knows too much about it yet.
Okay, we're gonna
I
skip
think
that.
I think I am going to try it. So if somebody wants to reach out to me soon, but I just encourage you to try it yourself. Go set up an account and just see what happens. And just post like a chapter or half a chapter or, a few pages and just experience that.
Okay, y'all, I'm reading through some of these questions and some of them are really good questions, but they're not really Robin's area of expertise. So I'm skipping over some of them, but almost every question that you've asked in here, excuse me, there are sessions on in the Women in Publishing Summit that dig into almost of all of these questions. So
that's great.
Yeah,
you're on the right path with your webinar and with your summit here.
There we go. So I don't know that do you know much about the market for children's book audiobooks?
I know that it's not very developed. The same with ebooks. It's almost all print for children's books still. And partly because there's not a lot of retailers that can handle it. Like even Amazon doesn't do that well with children's audio or ebooks.
Yeah, I'm trying to wrap my head around that, especially on the shorter ones. I can see with like middle grade books because they're a little bit
YA is better, but
yeah.
K through third or fourth grade, is harder.
I like this question because I was just contemplating whether to start the new Vikings spin-off series that's just come out. Are Vikings popular for books these days?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Vikings, dragons, druids. And we're getting a lot of dystopian, a lot of YA dystopian fiction, which I don't quite get. I think it's more about maybe the influence from the Hunger Games. Maybe that's where that's coming from. I personally don't right now. And I just never got why people would read dystopian fiction during COVID. I mean, it was just hard enough just living, right? End of the world stuff. Why would you want to read that? But it's still popular. I don't know why.
That's exactly why during COVID, I just got into like super light romance books, just sweet romance books where it's just a nice light rom-coms,
happy ending. I want happy endings.
Exactly. Give me a happy ending because the world is not. It's so true. Y'all have lots of great questions here, but I'm not going to try and answer most of these. You don't do the memoir world, right?
Not really, no.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, this question from Maddie is a good one. I know it's been a while since you've been with Ingram Spark, but I'm sure that you're still following things. Do you have any idea what plans Ingram Spark may have for upgrading their website authors use to manage their books?
Oh my God. It was such a nightmare even when I was there. Oh my gosh. You cannot believe all the years of plans to upgrade. And it's an issue. I know that they are updating reporting right now, which is something everybody's been asking for forever. And just overall, everybody there works really hard to make for a good, customer experience. But it does need an injection of some upgrading, and I'm with you on that. It's funny now because I'm an Ingram Spark customer myself, and I see everything wrong, and Oh, I see everything wrong, and I'm always ranting about why is this like this, and I let them know too. You know, but yeah, they need a good some development resources there.
Oh my goodness. All right. Well, thank you all for the great questions. I'm sorry if we didn't get a chance to get to yours, but again, all of these questions, almost everything that I saw are questions that we have sessions on, that we have people who are in the weeds on doing this. We don't have anybody talking about audiobooks this year. That was a shortfall. We didn't have anybody. And if you have any suggestions, you said, what was the name of the company you said? I need to write
Find
it.
a way. Find a way. I'll
Find
send
a
you.
way.
I'll send you a link. I'll send you a link to a couple of them,
Right.
so that you can just mention it. But like I said, I just feel like it's really audio are still not quite. It's still not quite affordable for the the average self-published author to be able to do that and do it well. And it really matters that it be done well.
Let's see. Okay,
Yeah,
Carly.
ACX is easy. You can do that, but you're kind of tied up with them for a long time.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
I do know that Grace Point is doing some audio. Grace Point is one of the our main sponsor this year. They're a big publishing.
Mhm.
They are doing some audiobook stuff, and we actually have a webinar scheduled with them later in the year. So if anybody's interested in audiobook stuff, we can do that one. And I'll share the list of companies that Robin shares with me in one of our emails coming up. But this was really a very interesting big picture look at the industry. And I, for one, I really believe that being an author is no different than any, or we have lots of professionals in here too, publishers, cover designers, graphic artists, all of
Kathy.
that.
Mhm.
I feel like being an author, being a publisher in this space, it's no different than any other career out there, that you should be aware of what's happening in your industry, that you
Yeah.
should be learning about all the things. So it was really nice to get that really kind of bird's eye view of what's happening in the industry.
And I just want to say thank you, Alexa. I feel like you gathering a tribe of women together is always such a great thing. It's such a healing thing, and how the world needs women in charge and women's voices.
Mhm.
I am so mad at men and all the screwy stuff that they've done, and all the horrible decisions and paths that they take the world down, and how destructive. And I'm just over it. I'm just so over it. And we need all of us women to be telling our stories and be taking our places and being leaders here, because really the men can't do it. I'm telling you, the men cannot do it.
They're certainly not laying the path I'd like to be on right now, I have to say.
Yeah, I'm over men.
Oh
So
my
except my
God.
husband and my son, but
Right, right.
yeah, and my grandson too. I'll throw him in there. But and certainly I'm not against all men. There's some wonderful men, but as political thing has just got me going.
Oh my
So
gosh, no kidding. Well, I am just so grateful to you for taking your time and being here with us. And everybody who has if you don't have your ticket, please get your ticket tonight if you want to join us for the next few days. womeninpublishingsummit.com. We're closing ticket sales tomorrow. This is not like one of those summits that you can just get them. We're stopping because of the fact that we have we really want to encourage as many people as can to attend the event, to commune with one another, to get to know each other, to do all those things. And we will be starting in Zoom room A at 9 o'clock in the morning. And I did want to make a quick announcement while I have a lot of you here with us. Beth just pointed this out. When we made a change to the schedule before we did the printable, and that said that the agent sessions were going to be in room A. The agent session with Amy Collins tomorrow is actually in the sponsor Q&A room. We changed that because it's a meeting instead of webinar, so that people can interact with Amy. Anyway, I'll put that in the email tomorrow, just so that everybody knows agent session will be in not in room A, but look for the link in the email. That will be correct. Thank you, Robin, for hanging out with
Thank
us
you.
tonight.
I
and
love
for-
Amy. She's a good friend of mine. So
She's
I love Amy. Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
I could spend the rest of my life with Amy.
Yeah.
I should
No
just-
kidding. And if anybody is ever in around the Albuquerque, New Mexico area, that's where I live, feel free to reach out, and I would love to see you all.
Road trip. Let's
Road
go
trip.
see Robin. We're
would be
bringing
great.
the Women in Publishing Summit to you. All right, everyone. Have a good night. We'll see you early in the morning.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye.